the #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatScale.ai.
Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
Everyone. So my name is Sinead and I'm here to talk you through some prospecting tips, especially for those of you who might be feeling a little bit stuck. But before we get to any of that good stuff, a little bit about me. I am a digital PR specialist at Seeker Digital, and I've been in both the link building and the digital PR departments, which makes me uniquely qualified to talk about prospecting. And just something else, this is my first ever conference talk, so thank you. So please be gentle and laugh at the jokes if they're not funny. So for those of you who don't know and haven't watched it, Mean Girls is an early noughties high school film about a new transfer student, which she's initiated into the ploy to bring down the popular girls of the school, unaffectionately known as the Plastics. And you might think, what has this got to do with SEO whatsoever? Well, it's a film about hierarchy, social groups, and a master plan to end the reign of the current leader, which lends itself nicely to explain the concepts of SERPs, niches, and link building strategy. Okay, to the good stuff, starting at the very start, which is what is link prospecting? Well, according to Ahrefs, it is the process of finding and evaluating potential sites to acquire links from. And this means identifying potential sites, depending on what type of link building strategy you're going for, checking the quality of that site, and finding the appropriate people to reach out to. We are going to be focusing on the very first part of that, which is the process of finding and evaluating sites, because sometimes your well runs dry. And this can happen for a number of reasons. If you're working in digital PR, it can be because you're working with a database, and as fantastic as databases are, they do have their limits. Or you could be struggling to find journalists that cover your niche. This is especially a problem that you might come across if you're working in a particularly small niche. And if you're working in link building, it might just be that you have run out of ideas, which is totally natural and normal, especially if you've been working on a campaign for a considerable amount of time. Or it might be because you're using a method that relies on the SERPs. And I actually had a theory around this. So I conducted a study to assess the variation in domains that rank for different keywords within the same niche. And for this study, I looked at 111 informational keywords within the interiors niche specifically, and I went for informational keywords so that it wouldn't pull up any product pages, which would likely be competitors. And from this study, I got 49,191 unique URLs. And then, because we don't want to be reaching out to the same sites over and over again, I deduplicated the domains and got 7,685 unique domains. And then cutting metrics for quality reasons, taking away any sites that had a DR less than 20 or traffic less than 500, left me with 5,316 unique domains, which sounds like it's a lot, but when you consider that the leap between unique URLs and unique domains saw us lose 85% of our URLs, and then the leap from unique URLs to unique domains that fall within the metrics requirements saw us lose 90% of our URLs, you can see how the duplicate domains occurring again and again proves to be a problem, especially over a long period of time. It is all too easy when using methods that rely on keywords for us to forget that keywords are dependent on Google's algorithm. And when Google is tinkering with their algorithm, outreaches are not the Regina George of their attention, nor are we second in command, or even third, a Janice in this situation. With a girl that doesn't even go here, Google is not looking to create variants within the SERPs to attend to the needs of people who want to use it for prospecting. They are trying to tinker it so that people who use it every day find the answer that they're looking for as fast as possible. And that means that sites which have a great deal of authority and tick the most ranking factor boxes are often featured again and again as long as they have content which is relevant. And for that reason, we need to vary the way that we are prospecting, which brings me nicely onto the Mean Girls principle. So probably wondering what that is. In Mean Girls, there is this iconic scene where our protagonist, Katie Heron, is being walked through the different groups of 25-year-old teenagers that attend North Shore High School. And they're all sat at the cafeteria in their social groups according to their common interests. So say that you wanted to tell a secret to the plastics. Would you do a citywide search to find each of their individual houses within the city that they live in to tell them the secret individually? One would hope that you had better things to do with your time. Would you go to each of their individual classes within the high school to perhaps find them in a maths class and tell them whatever secret it was? Again, probably better things to do with your time. Or would you wait until it got to lunch, walk over to the cafeteria table where you know all three of them will be sitting by themselves at one time, and tell them that you know the value of having 2 Fendi purses and a silver Lexus? The Mean Girls principle of prospecting is identifying the sources which only the relevant sites you want to gather, which only the relevant sources, relevant sites rather, will gather around. So the tables, if you will, and just like in Mean Girls, how all of the different social groups are gathered together around common interests, you need to find that within your niche. And there are 3 qualities that you can look for which might help you find these different sources, which, by the way, do not need to be sites. They can literally be someone's name or an email address even. So the 3 qualities that you're looking for: 1, the source proves something or shows something to the readers of the site. 2, the creator of whatever source it is has authority. Or 3, it's a unique and specific source. And this is a non-exhaustive list, and you might not fit into all 3 qualities perfectly, but if you have more of them, it's better. So let's start with the first one. Is this source being used by the site to show / prove anything? Businesses vary wildly, but their aims are often quite similar in that they are trying to convince people to have a look at them so they can ultimately engage with whatever product or service that they are trying to sell. And because of that, you can look at common aims and find common sources within whatever niche that you're working with by asking yourself questions like, is this source being used so that they can prove that they're trustworthy, or that they're up to date with the latest industry knowledge, or even that they're a relevant solution to your particular problem? And the reason that you ask yourself this question is because if the source isn't proving anything, if it isn't of value to the website, then it's not likely a source that is going to be picked up by multiple sites within that niche. Basically, you're ensuring that you have something to work with. And you can do that by looking for these specific types of sites. So, for instance, governing bodies. The governing body for HR people is the CIPD, or if you are selling something that has food involved, it's the Food Standards Agency. If you look at the backlinks of those sites, you will see a whole bunch of restaurants. So if you were to perhaps do a campaign around the food industry, that would be a good place to go. So the second quality that you have to look out for is, does the creator of the source have authority? So asking yourself questions like, do people outside of this niche know about the person who created this source? Or when something new happens to like the creator of the source, does it end up in the news for any reason? You're asking yourself this particular question because you want to make sure that you have enough URLs to work with. If your source doesn't have a great deal of authority, not a lot of people will either know about it or link to it, and therefore you'll have a list of about 10 prospects to work with, which is not what you want. And thirdly and finally, for these qualities, is this source unique and specific? This one is the one that I find the most important. So asking yourself questions like, is this a primary source? Is it a one-of-a-kind source? Is it specific to the particular industry that you're trying to target? And you ask yourself this question so that when you do get to the point of exporting all of the URLs that you're trying to work with, you don't get inundated with a whole bunch of irrelevant URLs. It's all good and well getting a whole bunch of URLs and your relevant ones being dotted throughout them, but if you have to work through thousands upon thousands of them, it's not a very productive use of your time. Asking yourself this question, make sure that you don't have to do that. Okay, so let's work through it in a couple of examples with some hypothetical clients, starting with this one. Client one is a website builder who's trying to get a new product out there and trying to promote it. I've given a couple of options in how you could perhaps find some prospects for this site. So the first one is a competitive backlinks campaign for the WordPress site. And the second one is an industry leader press release backlink campaign, which I have chosen the Bard announcement. Now, both of these options, the creators of whichever source it is, are really authoritative, and they can, referencing either WordPress's site or the Bard announcement, can show that you have a great deal of industry knowledge. Where they differ is the specificity and uniqueness. So you see this in the observations that come from working on this. For the Bard announcement, we have 1,699 unique domains from the backlinks that I've pulled using Ahrefs, although other backlink tools are available, including Majestic has a very good one as well. WordPress had 19,431 unique domains, which sounds all well and good, but when you have a look at what is featured in those backlinks, Bard is predominantly tech and business sites with very little else, and there's a higher concentration of tech, whereas WordPress, there is some tech and there is some business, but there is a whole host of irrelevant stuff in there because when people build their sites using WordPress, they sometimes put on their site a link to WordPress. And this is why it's so important to be unique and specific with how you're doing this, because working your way through 19,000 plus URLs is a mammoth task. And then moving on to example 2, this time we have an online bank that wants to do a thought leadership campaign around the most common Black Friday scams in the UK. So again, using Ahrefs, I have put 2 different terms into their Content Explorer tool. The first one just being Black Friday scams, and the second one being the reporting email for scams for the UK. And for this one, the observations are a little bit more complicated in that both are good in their own ways. I find that because Black Friday scams is very specific to the type of content campaign that we are going to be running, it does pull in a lot of relevant stuff using a tool like Content Explorer. But if you wanted to be more specific to the UK, then the email would probably be your best bet. Also worth mentioning that there was a higher concentration of good quality sites, so DR20 plus, traffic 500 plus, using the email. The results for the email got cut by half once we did those metric cuts, whereas Black Friday scams got cut by 2/3 once we did those metric checks. Both still really good though. And I wanted to end on that specific example because I wanted to highlight that there's nothing wrong with how you've been prospecting so far. This is more something to use for when you feel like you're hitting a wall, or if you want to refine the way that you've been working with the different methods that you've been using. So, quick run through of how do I put all of this into motion. Firstly, identify the type of site that you want links on. If you're working on behalf of a client and you're not entirely sure what type of site they want links on, simply ask them. I know that sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to work out, but your client does know what type of links that they want. Secondly, ask yourselves, what are businesses/publications like this trying to show or prove, and which sources would they use to achieve this? Going back to this slide, if you were to take a picture of any slide, I would suggest it be this one. You can work backwards, so you don't necessarily have to think of a new idea. Just reference this list and then Google, what is my niche's industry-specific awards? What is the governing bodies? What are the governing bodies for my niche? And like I stated before, it doesn't necessarily even need to be a link. So small film that you might have heard of called Barbie came out like a month or two ago. If you do a Content Explorer poll of the name of the set designer, you will get a whole host of interior design publications and blogs, which demonstrates the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be a link. And then coming back to putting that principle in action, number 3, determine whether or not these sites are authoritative enough to gather sites around them, or these sources rather. And then once you've done that, is it specific enough to interest just the type of site that you are wanting to reach out to, or predominantly? And then finally, you go about the outreach as you normally would: inspect, find contacts, write templates, and then send it all out. Some final tips: make sure to segment your data, especially if you are working on both link building and digital PR campaigns. When you're working on digital PR campaigns, for example, you will mainly be trying to get out to journalists, which tend to be writing for publications of high traffic and high DR. That's different to the way that you would try to approach someone if you were doing a link building campaign, as journalists tend to be time poor and they need to have a campaign presented to them. So segment, and you'll make your life a lot easier down the line. 2, filter your results as much as possible within whichever tool that you use to save time, but also it can help guide your campaign a bit. If you find that whatever source that you are looking at the backlinks of pulls up percentages every now and again throughout the list of URLs, and you filter by percentages because you're trying to do a data campaign, it can help you find journalists or writers who have focused on data campaigns like the one that you're planning to do. If you're stuck for sources, have a look at articles within your niche, even if they're from publications which you've already been featured on. This is just so that you get an idea of the type of things that they are linking to, and you can even take the sources from whatever articles that you're looking at and do various searches like backlink pools or Content Explorer pools. And if you're in a small niche with very little coverage, look at industries adjacent to you. It doesn't have to fit squarely within your niche to try and pull the sites that you are trying to go for. Final tip, once you've pulled all of these amazing prospects, especially if you're working in PR and you want to have a little bit of guidance on how to create headlines and subject lines which will really grab the attention of journalists within their inboxes, which are massively busy, my colleague Charlie has written a fantastic blog piece on how to do just that with loads of excellent actionable tips. I am about to head off after this session to go and see the Sugar Babes, which is very on brand for me. meaning I won't really have much time to stay around afterwards for questions. However, if you want to get in touch with me, drop me something on Twitter, or my lovely colleagues who are dotted all over the place have a stand on the ground floor, and you can go and talk to them about anything link building, SEO, or digital PR. Thank you very much for listening.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.